This is RSQ Labs, okay? And in here, what we're doing is looking at pre-test, reliability test, ongoing testing, specific testing. So let's have a look at some of the components that are going through test, or some of the tests that we're looking at. So on here, we've got a machine that will press the button. Okay, this particular product here has just finished 1 million life cycles of one button. Okay, so on the keyboard, you can imagine how many different sort of buttons, and each one of those are going through 1 million cycles. Okay, here we've got your like a USB cable, your lid on and off, on and off. Okay, testing now. Small batteries. This here is a rub test. So we've got an abrasive tape, and it will run from one reel to the next. So you put your product under. So it's basically a pressure probe that goes into one particular place. The tape will run through. Once it's finished, take it off and see what the effect of the abrasion was. Here is something very similar, but this is more like a rub test. So you've got a logo that's printed on to your product, and you say, okay, how many cycles that'll do before it sort of comes off. This is a hardness tester, basically used for metal hardness on this particular one. Viscosity, checking how viscous particular material is, or liquid. Very small strain gauge. Pull, we've got a larger one, which we'll have a look at in a minute. You see here, we've got some ongoing tests. Hey, okay. In here, we've got a couple of things going on, but this is just a visual inspection machine. Turn it on, it's all digital. So you put your part on the glass, light comes through, digital, and you see that on the display. Right. This is your automated tumble machine. So if you've got a product in here that needs to drop 1 meter or half a meter, you don't need to sit here and tumble it yourself. It's all automated. So, and again, you can set that for 100 cycles, 1,000 cycles, whatever the case may be. You can see here a particular mouse, just a random product, didn't quite cut that. Here we've got a component frequency vibration device. So basically this will start off a very low frequency vibration and go all the way up to the high resonance. So it's basically there to make sure, generally electronics or components that are snap fit together, make sure it stays snap fit throughout the frequency range. Okay. On this particular one, we are looking at ESTA or ISTA. This is for products being tested in the shipping. So the products will be moved around and shaken. So to represent going into the back of a container, what it's going to be like on the ship, what it's going to be like on the delivery truck, and things like that. Okay. Over the back here, we've got a drop test machine, so guided drop test. So you've got your phone that can be dropped on the end, flat surface, whatever the case may be. We've got ongoing tests here. We've got cycles. We've got products all over the floor here, but that's not part of the test. We're looking at dosing. Okay, so looking at this dosing particular product there. Now, I did say that back there we had a very small strain gauge pull device. This is our universal test machine. Now, what we can do here is load up different sort of samples in here. We can do that. We can do the pulls. In other words, we can get the strain gauge, or how strong a piece of material is. We can do the twist. We can do all sorts of different motions, i.e. the universal aspect of it. You can see here an example of a bolt that's pull test. See how strong the bolt was from a fixing point of view. Didn't snap, but you can see it clearly bent. In this side, we have our humidity and temperature testing. We've got a number of different units. This is a temperature humidity. It's relatively small parts, slightly larger parts. There's a component in there at the moment going through its cycle. So basically what this will do is it will take up the temperature and the humidity, and then it will slowly ramp down, go through this cycle like this on a relatively slow cycle time. This is the UV acceleration. In other words, if your product's being used outside and you want to make sure it doesn't go yellow or it doesn't go brittle or something like this, this will actually simulate the effects of the weather, or the UV sunlight anyway. This larger machine down here does something similar to the high humidity, high temperature sort of test chambers we just saw there, but this is a shock. In other words, we were looking at the slow cycle time previously on the other ones. This one does a sharper rise and fall. In other words, it shocks. None of go from high temperature to low temperature in a very short period of time and back up to a high temperature. This is used for products that are going to be used in extreme temperatures, places like northern Canada and other places, I guess. Here we've got, we are checking, we talked earlier in one of the previous videos about when we're doing production, we're looking at the guys on the shop floor wearing the blue bands. This is when the final product comes here. We are looking at exactly the same thing, the ESD, electrostatic discharge machine. So we'll basically zap the products, not the actual PCB itself, but the actual product itself, just to make sure everything's stable. We've got sort of a cable tester, basically this like test the cable backwards and forwards like this. This is a dedicated sort of test equipment. This is primarily for smoking, the quality of smoke, the density, but the key thing is dedicated specifically for one particular customer. Okay, so if you have a particular need and we don't have the piece of equipment here, it doesn't mean that we can't actually do it. What we do is work with you. We work with a specific test equipment manufacturer, and we'll build, design and build the sort of product for your testing for your product. Okay? The last thing I want to look at in here in RSQ Labs is the wet room. Okay, so in the wet room, we've got our salt fog sort of tester. We're checking for stability and resistance against rust, salty environments underneath a car, a caravan, whatever the case may be. So that's that. We've got a simple water test from an IP rating point of view. This only goes down to 1 meter. So I think that's IP67, something like this. But basically, generally, we color this. If it's a green, generally we color it. So we'll drop that in there. We'll leave that for 30 minutes. We'll take it out, take the product apart. If there's any ingress, we'll be able to see that. If there's no ingress, then we know we've passed. Okay. So over here, we've got a simulation of what goes in your pocket. Okay. So I've got a set of earbuds. Okay. So after a period of time, I know that I'm going to get some wear on the corners, but I don't know how much. So what we can do is simulate that and put that in there and get that running. And we can actually use a number of different chemicals to go in there to simulate sweat, for example. So if you've got a sports product that's going to be used down a gym day in, day out, but you want to know what the effects of a particular product is going in and out of your bag or your back pocket or wherever it's sort of being used, we can simulate that and sort of see the results of that. So that is a quick rundown of RSQ Labs. Now, and again, we can see one of the products being used here. This is not a certification house. Okay, we will not give you a certification, but what we can do is do a pre-test to make sure we've got some confidence before it goes out to certification. We can do ongoing reliability, we can do reliability tests, we can do halt and has tests in here, and as you see, we've got a lot of equipment to actually manage all of those aspects. Okay.